Yes.
Yes, I'll get ready to.
Hey, welcome along. At some stage, I'll actually get around to uploading these onto YouTube. So, got our usual panel of wonderful experts, Rod and Kylie, and me, and we're talking about. So last week we were talking about changes in the world, and Rod came along thinking, "Oh, we're going to talk about how the internet's changed the world and stuff like that," and we didn't. So I thought we would. And it's interesting in that sense. If you look at, like last week, we were talking about, every 500 years there's a major change, not just in the Western church, but in Western society and culture. So this one, really, the internet's been the big communications information change. 500 years ago, it was the printing press. And it's that interesting thing with the printing press that had they not had the printing press, the Reformation probably would never have happened. Because in that sense, Martin Luther's 95 theses, which he wrote that sort of starts it all, was just him wanting an academic discussion. Would have been written in Latin. He put them up where you would put up your ideas if you wanted an academic discussion. But someone got hold of them, we don't know who, translated them into German, printed them, and distributed it. And suddenly his little ideas that were a nice little academic discussion became the starting point for this major reformation. So yes, so printing press, radical change, and brought about huge change. The internet is bringing around huge changes to us. So maybe I'll pose the question, how have you seen the internet change the world? Maybe it's easy to ask, how haven't you seen it? But how have you seen it?
Everything's at your fingertips.
Yep.
Like today we were at martial arts and Ollie was trying to say thank you in Japanese. And I'm like, it's all right, I'll just Google it because I can't remember. So I don't bother remembering things anymore. It's, I'll just look it up when I need it.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's one of the many things.
Yes. Yes, so it's not just that everything's at our fingertips, but I think it has actually changed the way we think. That we don't bother to try and remember information. Like when we were growing up, you remembered it because you had to go and find the right book in the volume of the encyclopedia in the library, unless it was a something and you had it in your free Franken Wagnalls that everyone got at the supermarket. If it wasn't in that volume, then you had to go to the library and find it. So of course you remembered it, so you didn't have to go and hunt it. Whereas now it's like, I'll just Google it again if I want to know that answer.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it's actually changed the way we think and how we remember, because we don't bother to remember as much because I can just look it up anywhere I go. Yep. How else have we seen?
I think Einstein actually, one of his quotes was, if you can look it up, you don't have to learn it, or don't have to remember it. I like that because that's been mine, irrespective of the internet. Because when I think internet really only been, what are we looking at, 20, 30 years, is it? Late 90s, we started doing things on it.
Yeah.
So there was certainly, in my mind, if I know where to get the information, I don't have to learn, just got to know where to get it. So there was still a learning process in there. Yeah. But what I was going to say, it is social, and I hate that term, social media, but we did the things the old-fashioned way, sponsor some kids overseas and things like that. And then Compassion now lets you write the letters on their files, and they get sent more quickly, and they don't get replied any more quickly, but they get sent more quickly apparently. And we get to reply to them quickly, but we probably don't post them as often as we should. But the reason I was bringing that up is, there's always that when you sponsor a child, whatever, don't tell them where you live, don't offer them money outside of the Compassion, all these sorts of things. But it just happened that one day, probably 2 years after this girl had left, this person had left Compassion, one of our girls got an invite, and then we all did, just to be on social media with her. There's been no other negative side of it. However, just to see her come from a little girl that dropped out of the program, did this, did that, is now a mother, married, wonderful looking life, given where we thought she was living in some poverty-stricken area. It was just great to be able to have that different view given to us in reality, rather than thinking, oh, I wonder if she's still climbing coconut trees and chopping them down. Hey, quite different life from what we were available. So it brings things closer. Don't necessarily have a closer relationship, but that information, as you said, Kylie, is at fingertips. I have no idea whether the girls have looked her up lately, but I've shared that with Diana and said, look, this is where she's going. This is the husband, this is the kid, all those sorts of things. So it was nice to be able to be part of that. And yeah, it's one of those, what's the word, when you stalking people situations, it does allow that to happen, but in a positive view, it's an inclusive thing.
Yes. Yeah. And like,
so we don't stalk her, no, but she's just part of the world.
Don't worry, Rod doesn't stalk anyone. He's not stalking you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Who's that person that just popped up then?
But yeah, linked with that, I don't know whether either of you had that, but I remember as a kid in school, you got international pen pals.
Pen pals, yep.
And you might write to them, and 6 months later you got back a letter, and then you wrote to them, got round to writing letters to them 3 months after that, and so on and so forth. And sometimes you kept it for a little while, but it really, was hard because you weren't communicating very often. Whereas now, you can send a message and instantly get a message back from someone on the other side of the world. So yes, that sense of the question of whether the relationships are deeper, probably in some cases, yes, in some cases maybe not, but definitely there's a broader. And interestingly, Barna Institute in America that does a whole heap of research, along with World Vision and a couple of others, back around 2019, 2020, I think it was, they released a report on not the current generation of young people, but the generation before that, and they called it the connected generation. And they said, this is the generation that is most connected to other people in the world, but they actually feel quite lonely. So that sense of, yes, the internet has allowed us to connect broadly, but it's broad, but maybe not very deep. So yeah, that struggle of how do we help young people to have deep relationships? And one of the struggles with that in real life is that social media, the internet, means that often a young person is physically present, but they're not always fully present in that space because they've got someone messaging them on Instagram and someone messaged them on Facebook and someone messaging them on Snapchat. I was trying to get that one in my head and I couldn't do it. And so they're looking at everything that's going on. And so you get that new acronym that we suddenly have in the world of FOMO, fear of missing out. So I'm continually looking at what else is going on because I've got to see I don't want to miss out on something. I don't want to be here and, I should have been over there, which is, of course, then why definitely Gen Y, and I think it continues on, young people don't commit to anything till the last minute because, I've got to see what my options are. And I might get a better option over there, so I won't commit to here. And if I commit to here, it's not necessarily binding because then a better option might come up and you'll understand that I'll go there, which I'm sure drives all of us as leaders of young people mad. It's like, we thought they were coming, but they haven't turned up. So that's another, I think, way that the internet has changed us. Other ideas?
I think it's given us new and different opportunities to do the same thing, but we do it in a different way.
Yep.
You joked about the funk and Wagnall, but that was a relationship there. I would have to ask mum and dad, maybe help me look it up, or I can't find what I want, and we'll go through it. It was World Book in my day, but that's what we did. Now you don't have to. You don't even have to wait till you get home. You straight away look it up. And as you said, Kylie, you straight away forget it. But I know it. I looked it up. And I hope it was the right answer. As opposed to talking to mum and dad, or whoever it is, even the librarian at school, getting some sort of understanding of what it might be. I don't know whether the Funk and Wagner World Book of Britannica was any better than the internet. I would imagine it's got a limited input. Yeah, lots of people checked each other, whereas at the moment on the internet, whatever you said, if you're the most popular person, that's true. So popularity creates truth rather than research.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And yes, there's that danger of just because it says it on the internet, don't mean it's true. Like I've heard a number of famous people talk about, oh yeah, it says such and such on my Wikipedia page, but that's not true. And I've tried to change it, but they keep changing it back. So yes, it's that interesting thing of we now have access to all this information, but that means we have access to true information. We have access to not so true information. And yes, I can't remember whether it was when I was in uni, probably not, but shortly after them talking about don't quote Wikipedia as a source in an essay. Because it's not really a great reliable source. Yeah. In that sense, it's what people put up there. So look for other things online that might help you. And I think you've both frozen.
Can you hear me? Oh, now I'm still not.
Can hear you. I can hear Kylie. Oh, I heard Kylie a minute ago.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Okay. You see me now.
That's all right.
I changed to my phone, so now I'm all weirded out. It's
Okay,
not behaving like normal.
that's all right. You can just be a voice. Yep.
Okay.
So
I said some really important things when you dropped out, so I'm not sure what you.
I thought they were very insightful.
Actually, so be interesting what I said.
So I Googled changes 10 ways the internet has changed the way we live. So of course, research, how we find out about information has of course changed and expanded. And of course, it means when we talk about faith, we need to realize that young people can research and discover about all faiths. So we can't just go think about, okay, I just need to know what Christianity is about. We need to have a broader understanding of what other faiths believe, and some of that. Communication we've talked about. Shopping. So of course, we now do a lot of shopping online, and that's become even more so after lockdowns and all those sorts of things, which I know always has driven my mother crazy. Like, how can you possibly shop for clothing online? I need to go into the shop and try it on and things like that. But for an older generation, yes. For a younger generation, they're like, oh, I'll just get it sent. It'll be right.
Yep.
Travel. So particularly for me, I think the interesting thing is always if I go and visit someone, I'll go onto Google Maps and into Street View and go, okay, what does their house look like? Right, what am I looking for? Okay, I know when I get there, that's their house. That's the one I want to go to. And I don't know if you did that on your getting ready for your holidays overseas, Rod, but yeah, we can plan out and look at where are we going.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is completely different. Unless you can go to your Britannica or World Book and look at a famous site, but possibly know where you're going.
You can also book online and you don't have to go into a travel agent anymore.
Yep. You can book online. Travel agents have disappeared off the face of the world because why would you go in there? Entertainment. So it's interesting you talk to young people. Oh, what TV show do you watch? I don't watch because you stream everything. And we were joking joking at youth group on Sunday, had to come up with what would be your special day if you had to come up with a special holiday or a special celebration. And one of the girls came up with Andrew Appreciation Day. We'll celebrate all Andrews. So I thought, well, I can't think of many Andrews that are famous that you would want to celebrate. Obviously, Prince Andrew, you go, no. Andrew Daddo, really. So I quickly Googled famous Andrews, and most of them are like TikTok. YouTube. And it's like, no, these are not famous. But yes, these people are famous. Not really what we would think. Of course, financial services have changed. We do a lot of stuff online now. It's hard to find someone in bank because they expect you to have done it online. Relationships, so relationships start online. Healthcare, and of course, Kylie and I know all about that. When I got sick, and you've got the ambulance, and well, we've taken an hour. We might take an hour or so more. Do you want us to come? It's like, I've only fainted. No. And so they got Kylie onto the
virtual ED.
That's right, virtual ED,
Oh,
so
right.
virtual emergency department. Suddenly, you get on and the triage person says, okay, what's up? Cool. And then you get through to the person that gets all your details, and eventually you get through the doctor and they talk you all through. And it's like, I can have a doctor's appointment in my house, not have to leave. This is wonderful. So yeah, healthcare has radically changed. Marketing. So we're bombarded by different things. You do a whole heap on the line and all these ads pop up. And of course, employment has changed. I remember, and this is obviously the very early days of the internet. I remember being at college and our bursar was talking about his son worked for a company, I think it was in Ireland. And he was over there and he said, look, most of my work's online. Could I work from home? They're like, yeah, that's all right. He said, do you mind where home is? So he was working in Tasmania for a company over in Ireland. Just blew our minds in the late 90s. But now it is quite normal. And of course,
Yes.
through lockdown, we discovered, hey, we can work from home, which is now the interesting thing of, we notice when we go and pick up the kids at Jaffa, there's lots of fathers there because they're now obviously, they work from home so they can go and pick up the kids, which of course is a positive thing of that's obviously changing family dynamics. That whereas it probably always would have been mum went and picked them up, now dad is engaging into that life a little bit. So there are some positives. So
One of the things we've always had, I think, is multiple personas.
yes,
The internet certainly allowed us to compartmentalize them. I'm Rod Herman Gmail for certain things. I'm Big Pond for this. The emails come in and I can separate them. And there's a whole lot of other email addresses that I have, which say, this is the person that I'm after. It's the same Rod Herman reading them, but I'm able to compartmentalize them and put them in a certain way. And there's other people that email is not, it's the phone call. So there's a Rod Herman at the end of the phone. If it's a text, it's treated differently, and people treat me differently through text, through the phone call, through all those possible apps that are out there. WhatsApp, team meetings, Zoom, for example. As a father, I can get to pick my kids up now because I don't have to travel an hour to work or from work before I'm able to go pick them up. I'm here, I finish work, Jaffa finishes at 5, I've finished at 5, leave 5 minutes early and I'm there. Not that I have kids at Jaffa, but those sort of things. So we've streamlined things. Hopefully Rod Herman father turns up, not Rod Herman, whatever he is when he's at work, get out of that particular persona. But yeah, we certainly, the internet has helped reinforce those and give us chance of compartmentalizing those. So maybe for kids too, it's when they're online, they're quite different from when they're face to face.
Yeah.
That's something to watch out for as well.
Yes, which to some degree can be good, but it also means that while they're going through this period of teenagehood when you're working out who your identity is, and naturally we had our identity with our family was slightly different to our identity at school and maybe our identity with friends. Suddenly you now add your identity on Facebook, your identity on Instagram, and those identities might not be the same. So suddenly we're adding, or young people are adding to, how do I work out who I am and how do I work out who I am in all these different spaces? And that adds a complexity to life, but yes, can help us to to put them in boxes.
Compartmentalised.
Compartmentalized. Yes.
That's the word. Must be late.
Now I'm going to have to run.
You're going to have to run. We'll see you all later. Have a good one.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye,
Sounds
everybody.
Bye. Catch up
See
later.
ya.
Yeah.